Good evening, everyone, or it's perhaps good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're tuning in from across the world. I'm so delighted to welcome so many of you. I can see the numbers here. And thanks to the wonders of technology, although I'm slightly wary always of saying that at the very start, I'm delighted we're all able to come together in this way, even though it's slightly strange circumstances. And especially given there are so many books and ideas out there at the moment that need talking about, despite so many sadly cancelled events and live tours and lots of voices that need listening to, and not least Glennon's. So I'm thrilled to welcome you, Glennon, and to be in conversation with you to discuss the ideas in your most recent book, which I'm going to flash up in the screen, Untamed, Stop Pleasing and Start Living, which is already a New York Times bestseller and the inspiration for our talk today. It's an intimate and deeply honest memoir, and a call to women everywhere to stop thinking about what we should do and what we should be and how we should behave, and start thinking more about listening to our inner selves and acting more truly according to that. And I'm sure she doesn't need any introduction. She is, of course, the author of New York Times best-selling other books, Love Warrior and Carry On Warrior. And she's an activist and a speaker, thought leader, and the president of an organisation that I hope we're going to be talking about more a little bit later, Together Rising, which is a female-led non-profit organisation that's raised over 25 million for people in need. But you haven't all tuned in to hear much from me. I know that I'm going to do as little talking as I possibly can and let you do the talking. We'll be in conversation for about 45 minutes, and then it'll be time for questions. And I'm sure there will be many, so we will try and get in as many as we possibly can. Glennon, thank you very, very much for joining us. And I know that there are lots of bigger things to worry about at the moment, but having a cancelled book tour is such a sad thing for anyone. I know that huge amounts of effort go into writing something, especially like a memoir. How have you found not being able to do these events live?
Found it to be much like the rest of my life, which is that you just make a lot of plans, a lot of big plans, and you're sure of how things are going to go, and then life happens and everything changes, and you just pivot the best you can. It was sad at first, and my whole team worked for a year on the tour, and we loved the book so much, and but we just, and then in the beginning you have that feeling of, well, I feel sad, but I shouldn't feel sad because other people's pain is worse. So there's that whole situation. But, mostly we've just switched to service, kind of. That was our mantra in the beginning. Okay, out of promotion mode into service mode, which for us meant doubling down on Together Rising. And I started these morning meetings where I was just gathering my community together, trying to offer some connection and comfort. And the interesting thing is, in some ways, it's my ideal book tour because I never leave my house, right? On day 19 of quarantine, my wife turned to me on the couch and she said, "Has your life changed at all?" It's like, not really.
I do completely understand that. We were just saying before we came on that it's quite nice being able to do a live event in sort of socks. But you say actually in your book, there's a moment where you're sitting in the airport, I think, waiting to go and do a live event for Love Warrior, and you say, what is the point of being a writer if I have to say words about the words I've already written? But I imagine that for this book, you don't feel like that, or do you?
In the beginning, I did. I don't now. Somehow, like, all the themes in the book sort of came to life, which is why I think it's resonating so much in this moment. We're kind of all stuck at home and having to figure out how to use pain as transformative power, right? Which is what the book is about and sort of what this moment is about. So it has come to life in a real way that makes it feel real to me. But honestly, I find it one of the strangest parts of being an artist, that you create the art, but then that's not it. Like, you put your blood, your sweat, your tears into this thing, you make it the best you possibly can, and then you hand it over, and then this whole other part starts, which is like you have to become a commercial for the art you made, which is a separate skill
luckily you are very good at both those skills. So tell us a little bit about this title, Untamed. I know that you wrote it and you weren't sure. You wrote something today on Twitter about the cover. It's all a kind of, it all is untamed. The cover's untamed. The structure is slightly wild. Was that intentional? Did you mean for the sort of the medium to be like that? Convey the message of it.
I needed it all to be like that. I mean, I wrote this book twice. Okay, I don't know if you know this, but this is. So I wrote Untamed. I knew that I needed to write a book about returning to ourselves, about the concept that we are all born individual, we are all born with this wild true self, and then over time, we become conditioned, right? We become socially programmed. We have to assimilate into families and into schools and into communities and into religions and into all these places that in many ways require us to abandon our individuality to earn our belonging, right? Most of our communities are set up that way right now, where you can either have your individuality and be on your own, or you can have, tribal thinking and earn safety of the tribe, but you can't have both. And so I wanted to talk about this idea of how you kind of get to a point. For me, it happened when I fell in love with Abby. When I met her, I had this thing, just this rising, this knowing that happened inside of me that I recognized as my true, real self, right? A different self than the one that I had been sending out into the world to try to please people. The reason I knew that is because I wanted her, and it was the first time I had wanted anyone beyond who I had been trained to want, right? Like, it was the first totally wild thing that had ever occurred to me, with me. So I knew I wanted to write a book about returning to this wild, and so I spent a year writing about this theme. I kept writing and I kept writing, and Hannah, it kind of sucked. And I knew it kind of sucked. Down deep, I knew it kind of sucked, but I was hoping that no one else would know that it sucked, right? I just thought, like, maybe I've earned enough, like, street cred, like, maybe they'll think it's good, okay? And then a dear friend who I know that you know, Liz Gilbert, came to my home for the weekend, and we were just sitting around, and she said, "Read me what you have." And I started reading to her, and Hannah, I'm watching her, and she's laying on my couch, and she's just sinking deeper and deeper into the couch. So I'm thinking, this cannot be a good sign. It's not what you want to see, right? And I stop reading, and she says, "Glennon, when you tell me your stories, I come to life. When you read me your essays,